Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for my random horror reviews. I did think it was going to be a little while longer till I came back and did my reviews, considering I'm a little bit burnt out coming off the back of my 31 days, which I just completed. But either way, I actually rewatched this movie a couple nights ago, and I thought it's a really interesting movie, and I definitely feel like talking about it. So today's movie is 2021's Phil Tippett's Mad God. Now, before I get into my thoughts of Mad God, we'll quickly go into the plot. And as I go into my thoughts, I'll explain why it's kind of a hard plot to go into. So I'm just going to read the description that they have on the back here. So here we go. Follow the assassination through a forbidding world of tortured souls, decrepit bunkers, and wretched monstrosities, forged from the most formidable horrors of the subconscious mind. So I'm just going to leave the explanation for the movie there, and let's get into my thoughts of 2021's Mad God by Phil Tippett. So first of all, I guess for the people that haven't seen this movie before or just don't know anything about it, Mad God is an animated film. It was made by using stop motion animation. I believe the story behind it was it took Phil Tippett and his team like years, and I mean years, to make this movie. And the end result really is super impressive. Like, you can just imagine the amount of time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears that went into making this a complete project. And as I said, the end result is super impressive. And I guess that's where we'll start with the animation, because all of the backgrounds and monsters and creatures and characters in this movie feel so full of life while also not being too realistic and everything. And what I mean by that is, I really like when animated movies really use the full range of their media. Like, don't make it too realistic or things exactly how they would be in the real world, because you might as well just make a live action movie with CG or whatever. Like, if you're gonna use animation, use it to its full range, and that's what it really does here. Like, all of the backgrounds and monsters and creatures and everything, like I said before, just feels so full of life, while also just having that typical stop motion charm to it, and the way they move and everything. It's just super fucking cool. Now, I've heard a lot of people say when they watch this movie, it actually makes them feel sick, and it normally comes up in two different ways, and I'll get into both. First of all, the imagery and the creatures and monsters and a lot of the stuff that you see in this movie is really gross and slimy and grimy. Like, there's people like shitting out their guts, and gross monsters with big teeth and eyeballs bulging out and heads explode. Like, there's lots of gross stuff in here, and I wouldn't lie, like, there's moments where it does sort of make you feel a little bit weird in the stomach. I've also heard a lot of people say that sometimes the animation makes them feel a little bit off, because it is stop motion and things are sort of moving side to side and sort of got this feel to it. I get both points, but as I said, at the end of the day, like, the use of animation in this movie is just incredible, and the world that it creates, it's so grimy and gross, but it really just cements you in there and really transports you to this other world. And with all that being said, like, as I said, there's lots of gross moments and grimy, dark places that it takes you, but it also does, like, this part in the movie where it's actually quite beautiful. There's lots of neon colors. It's almost like Alice in Wonderland sort of vibe. You've got these like insects playing poker, and as I said, these neon bright colors and everything. I just think the animation in this movie is incredible. Easily one of the best stop motion animation projects that I've seen visually. Everything on that side of the film you really can't fault. So this next point I do feel a little bit weird about bringing up, but I hope you know here on my channel I never bullshit. Every video I'm always completely honest. I'm not one of those people that goes to Google with a question and then comes back and claims it as my own. Hey, I figured this out while I was watching the movie. I think that's bullshit, and it's perfectly fine to admit when you don't know stuff. But I do want to bring it up because I feel like it does praise, again, what I like about this movie. So, as I said, I've seen this movie 3 times now. Like I said earlier, I rewatched it a couple nights ago, so I've seen Mad God 3 times in total. Each and every time I've watched it, I knew there was a storyline going on. I knew we were following this character, and he was going deeper down into the earth and all that going on. I knew there was commentary and metaphors and everything going on in this movie. But before watching this movie, every single time, I've never read a plot description for this movie before. I've never read, what the story's about. I know I read the plot description on the back at the start of this video, but that was the first thing I've ever read about the storyline going on in this movie. Each and every time I've seen this film, I've had no fucking clue what's going on, and that's just me being completely honest. Maybe a little bit embarrassing, but I don't really care. I'm just happy to admit, every time I've seen this movie, I've had no idea what is going on to a certain extent. As I said, I know we're following this character, I know he's going deeper into the earth and he's looking for something. Now that I have read the plot description, the assassination and going into this underworld and everything, makes sense. I'm connecting the pieces. But, as I said, I know I've said it so many times, I've had no fucking idea to a certain extent what the storyline in this movie is. But I've never really cared because I've still been so entertained. And again, it just comes down to the animation and the world building and, the visuals and the characters. Everything in this is just so entertaining. It's eye candy. Maybe not always in the best way because, as I said, a lot of the visuals are pretty gross and brutal. But I'm just still entertained. I'm happy to admit I had no idea what was going on. Now I'm connecting the pieces. Seen this movie 3 times, but still, as I said, I feel like me admitting it just still gives this movie praises for how entertaining it really is. So I think I've said everything that I want to say about Mad God. I will admit it's a movie that's definitely not for everybody. I wouldn't recommend this to your average moviegoer. But someone who enjoys animation, especially stop motion, and people who like dark, disturbing cinema and like to be, transported to a more grimier world, this is definitely going to be up your alley. I was happy to admit, I've seen this movie, as I said, 3 times, had no fucking idea what was going on. But each and every time, I've enjoyed the ride. This movie is pretty draining by the end of it. You're pretty exhausted. I think it's just because you're going through so many brutal visuals and just being taken on this journey. It's sort of like, in a way, a dark version of Disney's Fantasia. I could be way off because I haven't seen Fantasia since I was 4 or 5. But it's sort of like that, where if I remember Fantasia right, there's not really a story. It's just more showing off Disney's animation. It's kind of like that. As I said, now I know there is a story going on and sort of something I can follow, and maybe I'll enjoy it upon rewatch whenever that is. But it's more of the journey it takes you on and, the full scale of what stop motion animation can do. That's where this movie's highlight, really shines. So I'm going to leave it there. As I said, 2021's Phil Tippett's Mad God. Normally I have a rating in mind before I start my review, which I didn't think about, but I'm going to give Mad God a 7 out of 10. As I said, maybe I'll enjoy it more now that I know what's going on in the story. As I said, I was happy to admit it just because I think people who, as I said, go and Google and then say, oh, I figured this out while I was watching it. No, you fucking didn't. I'm dumb. I'm not the smartest person going around. I'm happy to admit I had no clue what really the story was. I knew we were following this guy. I knew he was on a mission. He kept checking his map and going deeper and deeper. But at a certain point, I just checked out and I just sort of fell in love with the visuals and everything going on. But gonna give Mad God a 7 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts on it if you've checked it out. As I said, definitely more so for people who, really enjoy animation and especially stop motion and, these darker visuals and everything. The world it creates and, the visuals and everything that go into this movie is really the highlight. But that's enough for today's review, guys. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. If you've seen this film, let me know your thoughts. And I'll see you for another video soon, guys. Peace.